Welcome to the Inspired by HERstory podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Casso, travel and brand photographer and the founder of Caitlin Casso Creations, where I share other women's stories through my photographs and now this podcast. Inspired by HERstory is a podcast dedicated to inspiring, motivating, encouraging, and empowering women to get out of their comfort zones and follow their dreams. Whether it's owning their own business, experiencing something new, or making a major life change, I want to encourage other women to follow their dreams and live their lives to the fullest. Throughout this podcast, I will be sharing my own stories and those of inspirational women with hopes to let souls connect and adventures to unwind. Follow along as I take you with me during my travels, experiences, and encounters with these amazing women. Today on Inspired by HERstory is Megan Hoeffner. Megan is a healer. She is the gift of fearless love and is passionate about helping others along their journey to self-discovery and self-acceptance. Megan packs an extensive library of knowledge and experience and is stoked to share her passion of movement and mindfulness with her students. She has been teaching group fitness for a decade, instructing yoga for 6.5 years, is a personal trainer, and is a certified and trained sound practitioner. She has a deep understanding of the body in space and movement as she holds a Master's of Science degree in Applied Health Physiology and a BA in Dance Performance. Megan is an ERYT 500 YACEP International Yoga teacher. She loves to travel, explore new places and cultures, and continually pushes herself outside of her comfort zone to discover all that there is. And this is her story. So we have today on Inspired by HERstory, Megan. And Megan, we were recently in Costa Rica on your yoga retreat, and I was there photographing it and participating in it, which I wish I was still there in this moment. So I wanted to take you on this podcast because I feel like everybody has their own story as to where they got to where they currently are today. And I was lucky enough to be able to hear your story more while we were in Costa Rica. And I feel like it would be a great opportunity to be able to also share your story to everyone else as well. So I'm really excited to have you on here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to, share a little bit of where I came from and where I am now. And I always laugh at this where I see myself going because it's always going to be different.
Oh,
you
yeah.
You can plan.
Mm-hmm. I always say, I'm like, you could only plan so much, but then otherwise life just takes over and you just got to go with the flow.
You just keep rolling with it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you have an awesome background that led you to where you are today. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you got to where you are today and, how you got to even the point of hosting an international yoga retreat in Costa Rica.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a funny story. Well, not really. It's not funny, but it's just the way things evolve and change. And I grew up dancing, so I was a classical ballerina since I was 7. And that's what I did my undergraduate degree in was dance performance and environmental studies and political science. And so I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then the thought of me sitting behind a desk was absolutely horrible. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And the first time I ever traveled out of the country was when I graduated from my bachelor's degree. I went to Italy for 2 weeks and danced with a company from Atlanta in Sorrento, Italy. And so it was like a summer intensive. So we would dance every day. And then at the end of it, we performed at this outside theater in downtown Sorrento. And it was absolutely magical. And I just fell in love with traveling. Before I had left the States, I didn't understand what people were so stoked on going to somewhere where they didn't know anyone, their family wasn't there. They were miles from home. I didn't get it. And then once I went there, I was like, oh man, okay, this is it. I understand it now. And I really, I learned so much about myself and it really changed my outlook on the world, like getting out of the United States and going to Europe. I mean, Europe is very industrialized, so it's very different than traveling to the places that I travel to now.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that winter was the first winter that I went to Costa Rica. In 2010, I went with my brother and his girlfriend at the time. And let me tell you, it was a total 360 of traveling to Europe. And it was so underdeveloped from what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was dirt roads 100%. There was no wireless internet. There was barely any like landline internet. Every time we would go to the internet cafe, the connection would be down. So of the 10 days, I didn't even have a chance to call my mom at home.
Total
And
opposite of when we were there.
oh man, oh yeah. It was like walking into BWI airport, flying into San Jose now. But that first time in Costa Rica, you know, I like got it. I got that pura vida lifestyle because the
Mm-hmm.
town that I went to every day at sunset, everyone in the town shut down and walked to the beach to watch the sunset and have a beer.
That's so awesome.
And I'm like, man, this is what life is about.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was really kind of my first experience with yoga. We would walk down to this resort and take yoga. My brother, girlfriend, who ended up being one of my best friends, we would walk down and take class. And so that was like kind of my first real exposure to like real authentic yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started practicing when I came back into the States. And then when I graduated from undergrad, I stopped dancing and kind of got like out of shape. And so I started working with a trainer, and then I got interested in teaching group fitness and personal training. And so then I started teaching Zumba because that was, you know, the next logical thing to
Mm-hmm.
happen to me. And then so I started teaching all these different styles of group fitness and started subbing yoga classes because I was taking them so frequently. And then a 200-hour yoga teacher training just happened to come to my small town. And I was like, oh, I'll do it. I'll get another group fitness certification. You know, whatever, I'll teach yoga. And and then that totally changed the trajectory of my life. Just the information that I was exposed to and the process of evolution that I went through as an individual in that training. I can't, I mean, I would pay that every year. Like it was the best investment I've ever done.
That's awesome, especially because you like it was almost at first just like, oh, check it off the list, like might as well just do this, but then it ended up becoming so much more than that.
Oh yeah, it was totally just a physical practice for me. And then by the end of it, it was, you know, what I called my religion. It was how I related to myself and to the world and how I got through life. And I think I was 24 at the time. And I say now, you know, I can't imagine going any longer in my life without the tools that I gained from yoga and from my yoga training. Because I struggled from a young age with really bad like self-image from dance. Like I have body dysmorphia and had really bad like depression and like body image. And so that was like the first time in my life where I was able to accept myself and the
Mm-hmm.
way I looked physically in a mirror. Like I couldn't stand in front of a mirror and look at myself. I just hated it. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I I still struggle with that today, but now that I have these kind of little tools in my toolbox, I just have to kind of repeat to myself, okay, Megan, like, what's happening? La 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 la, go through my little checklist. So that really helped me kind of start the path to loving myself. And then I went to get my MFA in dance in upstate New York at SUNY Brockport. And being in front of the mirror for 7 hours a day was just brutal. I didn't think that I would hit that low of a depression again since I'd found yoga, and I did. And so that really scared me. And I kind of had to make a decision, like, is this what I want for myself, And so I ended up leaving that master's program, which was hard because I felt like a failure. That was the first thing that I had quit in my life. And, I had this one professor that I didn't really like. We butted heads, and she pulled me aside and was like, look, you're miserable. And don't finish this degree just because you think you're going to disappoint your family, or you feel like a failure, or, like, if this isn't making you happy, like, just stop, like, figure out what you want to do, what you really want to do. And I knew that I was interested in working with dancers as an athlete, like cross-training them for injury prevention. So I knew that I needed to get a science degree. I couldn't talk about science things without a master's of science, and I was in a master's of fine arts program. I came home on my winter break, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell the guy that I was dating at the time, that I wasn't going back to school in New York. I just stayed home, and I found a school in my hometown that offered a master's in science and applied health physiology, and contacted the university and figured out what I needed to do to get into the program. So I had to take all these prereqs because I didn't have a science degree. So I had to take anatomy 1 and anatomy 2 and kinesiology and exercise physiology to get accepted. And so I did that. And then a semester later, I was in the program. And my second semester in that program, I got a graduate teaching assistantship with the university. So I taught for the university at the undergraduate level for the exercise science department. And I was teaching kinesiology and exercise instruction to the undergrads. Yeah, it was amazing. It was crazy that, semester before I didn't have any education in science, and then the next semester I was teaching kids the stuff that I was just in class for.
Yeah.
And I really, really love teaching. And I really love teaching older people. Like, kids are just not my thing. So it fit well to teach at the collegiate level. So I decided that after my graduate degree was over, I was going to treat myself to a 300-hour yoga teacher training program. That was going to be my graduation present to myself.
Nice.
And I decided that I wanted to do a like a destination, because the one I did back in the States was broken up over 6 months. And it was in Maryland, and I wanted to go away, and I wanted to be fully absorbed in it. And do it all at once. So it's normally like 3 or 4 weeks. And I was like, oh, well, Bali's nice. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I heard it was like a really healing place. So let me look up teacher trainings in Bali. And of course there's, bazillions of them now. Anyway, I narrowed it down, and I decided on this one training, and then contacted them, and they had this early bird discount. And so I was like, well, I'll just pay in full. And this was in October, and my graduation was in December. And so, October I paid, I booked my flight. I was just pretty much forgot about it. I was just like, okay, it's taken care of. Cool. Now I just wait until I graduate and everything's fine. I decided that, after my training, I wanted to pursue teaching yoga internationally and personal training internationally. And all the kids that I were in school with would just kind of laugh at me and kind of look, confused when they would ask me what jobs I was applying for. And I said, I'm going to be an international yoga teacher. They're like, what? I don't get it. I was like, I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to teach yoga.
And they're like, you went to school for that? Was that a part of the degree? I don't understand how this works.
They're like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, well, I want to see the world and I want to see it for as little money as possible. So I'm going to go places and they're going to pay me to teach yoga.
Nice.
And that's going to be my life. And everyone was just kind of laughed at me. I don't know if they were laughing because they didn't think I could do it or if they were laughing because they didn't understand how to do, I don't know. Anyway.
It's like people tend to think that, if it's not your typical scenario, then they just don't understand how that's possible to work. Because I get the same thing myself when I tell people I'm a travel photographer. And they instantly are like, oh, well, that must be nice. Like, you could actually make money doing that? Or, like, how does that work out? Like, they instantly have doubts that it's possible.
Yeah, it's been it's hard. It's interesting and hard. And it's a good challenge. I like challenges. But when you don't live within the blueprint of what everyone else does, you feel like you're flailing most of the time, but it's fine because there's no guidelines, so what you're doing is perfectly okay because there's no one there saying, oh, nope, you didn't do that right. You are literally creating your own rule book. So you just do whatever the heck you want, which is perfect.
Exactly. I love it.
So graduation came in December. And that was in 2017. And I had my first retreat planned for March of 2017 in El Salvador. My friend had a connection with a guy that owns a studio and retreat center there. So I had that all set up. And then, so I was going to have my retreat in March. And then I was going to come home for 5 days. And then I was going to fly to Bali and do my training. And I was like, oh, look at this. This year is my year. I'm just going to launch myself into my career as an international yoga instructor, and it's going to be great. And then my dad died unexpectedly on February the 9th, and then my life stopped. Yeah, it was hysterical because I was so pumped up for myself. I was like, I have a master's degree and I have a retreat planned already and I'm getting my advanced yoga teacher training. Like, look at me. I'm hot shit. Like, I've already got this. This is my year. And then the universe is like, watch this. No one's ever prepared for that kind of thing. But I hadn't really experienced any type of loss or trauma that could ever be equal to that in my life. And I'm so grateful that it happened because I was such a slave to this concept of work, achieve, make something of yourself. And I'd always worked 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time. And for once in my life, I quit everything. Like, I quit everything. I was a full-time personal trainer and group fitness instructor. I wasn't in school anymore. But when I was in school, I was, a full-time personal trainer, full-time group fitness instructor. I was bartending and I was a graduate teaching assistantship. So I was teaching 6 classes for the university on top of my master's classes. And that was just my life. That was my pace. I just shoved as much into everything as I could possibly fit. And so for the first time in my life, I had nothing to do, and I just was stopped dead. And it was really necessary so that I could decide if that's how I wanted to live my life.
And it's interesting how yoga especially got brought into your life, because yoga tends to be known more as, a mindful practice, and maybe some people think that it kind of slows them down a little bit more. Like I know, for example, I ended up starting doing yoga because I felt the same, where I was constantly busy, always like jam packing my schedule. And then all of a sudden I realized that I needed something to kind of slow me down and bring me more into this mindful practice. Do you
Yeah.
feel like it kind of came about at the right time?
I don't think it could have come at a better time. Like, I would never want to lose my dad. I mean, again, he's gone, but
Mm-hmm.
if I were to have to lose my dad again, I would want it to happen the same way, because when I went to my teacher training in Bali, the school was heavily based in meditation practices, and so when I was there, I found my father through meditation and his spirit and his energy. I mean, his body wrapped around mine. So if it had, happened at any other time, I don't know if I would have had that type of opportunity to make that strong of a connection in such a short amount of time. So yeah, I was very grateful again for yoga stepping in and showing me something that no one else can.
Definitely. And it's, as much as you don't want something like that to happen in your life, it's almost like you at least were able to find a way to be grateful for the timing, in a sense, even though I'm sure when it first happened, you felt like this could have been the worst timing for it to happen. But then after going to Bali, then it opened up your mind more to being, okay, this is the perfect time for it to have happened. As perfect
Yeah.
as the scenario can get.
Yeah. And, it was special because we're so trained to be attached to the physical and everything. No, there's not a lot of talk about like energetic connection or what happens when your physical body is gone. Like, you're not dead, you're just in a different dimension. You're just in a different I have to you have to find that person differently. You communicate with them differently, but you don't ever talk about that, or you're not trained in it. And so once, most people lose someone, they think they're gone forever. And so, yet I get this opportunity to realize, oh, well, no, he's still there. Like, I can talk to him whenever I want to,
Yeah, that's
It
amazing.
was, yeah, it was crazy. It was really overwhelming too, because like, I was there when my dad passed away. And so I knew that when somebody passes away, their energy leaves their body. And so I was like breathing him, essentially him inside of me. And for a very long time, well, I mean, I guess up until this year, whenever I had that type of interaction or communication with my dad, I would actually I would feel as if I was becoming his body. Like, I was his stature. I was a 6'4" man. My hands felt like his hands. Like, and a lot of the time I would be hard and stiff like he was when he passed away. And that was something really intense to feel on multiple occasions,
Mm-hmm.
that you're turning into your dad's dead body. Like, that's insane. like I had to like have a conversation with him and ask him like, you know, you gotta like, you can't, it's a little intense, you know, like, can you lighten up a little bit? And so we were just both afraid of letting each other go. Like he was afraid to let me go and I was afraid to let him go. And so then we just kind of had to have this communication through, you know, various styles of energy work so that our relationship is more amicable for both of us. So like 4 days before my dad passed away, I met Ryan. And so he was incremental in helping me through that transition. Like he was my person that, you know, wiped the snot that was running down my face off of me and, you know, made me laugh. And he had lost his mother 4 years previous. So he knew what I was going through and I never had to explain myself or apologize. And I couldn't have done it without him.
But it's so good to have somebody that, you know, you have that mutual connection with in order to actually understand each other and you don't feel like you're talking to a wall or, you know, they're not open-minded enough to how you're feeling and what you're going through.
Or even have the capacity to pretend to be able to manage someone's emotional state after losing a parent. Like it's a train wreck.
Oh yeah.
And he was just like, you know, let's go.
Like I will take this on with you.
Yeah, like he had this like capacity he just loved life, like everything. And yeah, he's like the first person that I met that I didn't have to change or try to change who I was around him for them to accept me. It was like, you know, day 1, he met me with makeup on. Day 2, I was like in sweatpants, perpetually crying.
With your makeup running down your face now.
Oh no, I didn't even put makeup on. There was a solid like 3 months of no makeup. Probably longer.
And he was totally fine with it, you know?
Yeah.
That's amazing to be around somebody in that period of time too, where you say he loved life, but then at the same time, like, it's not that he just loved life, but he also understood death, I guess you can say, because of him experiencing that with his mom as well.
Yeah. And until like that happens to you, you try to empathize and you try to relate, but you just can't. And so it was nice to, have him there. And so, yeah, I, after my training, I came home and tried to get back on my feet, started thinking about what's next. And I knew that a girl that I had taught with had gone to Nicaragua the year before and taught yoga and stand-up paddleboarding at a gated community. And so I reached out to her and she put me in contact with the place that she worked for. I emailed them and then, that next December, I moved to Nicaragua and became a resident yoga teacher and personal trainer and stand-up paddleboard tour guide for Rancho Santana, which is gated community, but also has like hotel style accommodation in the South Pacific of Nicaragua. And so I lived there for about 6 months.
And so you were doing exactly what you said you would do when you graduated.
Yeah, I was doing it.
And you're like, look at me now.
I know. Yeah, it was good. It was a good opportunity to get to get away, like we were talking about Costa Rica. I needed to get away from what had just happened. Like I needed to get away from here and separate myself, because like as amazing as Ryan was, he had his own problems, and so we needed some time apart to figure things out. Like he needed to take responsibility for himself and figure his life out, and I needed to, we had created a very codependent relationship, obviously because of the circumstances of both of our lives, and I knew what was happening and he didn't. And I mean, I knew everything that was happening because of yoga, and he can attest to that. He went to treatment, and they did a lot of yoga and yoga therapy when he was in rehab. And he would call me and be like, I remember you telling me this about yoga, and how did you know all of this stuff? And you're so smart, and blah, blah, blah. So
That's awesome.
It was hysterical.
You're like, now you're going to listen to it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, thank God you at least admitted it to me. I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, I landed my first international job, and that felt good.
And so how long were you there for?
I went originally for 2 months. So I was there for December and January. And then I came home for 2 weeks because it was the first year anniversary of my dad's death. And so I wanted to be home with my family for that. And then I went back for another 2 months. And then I came home. And then I went to El Salvador to assist a teacher for her 200-hour yoga teacher training program. And then I went back to Nicaragua for about another month. And then I came home to the States for the summer. And that was last summer.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So a lot of back and forth a little bit.
It was a lot of back and forth for the past 2 years. Because this year I went back to Nicaragua in November and December, and then came home. And then I went to Costa Rica for January, and then came home. And then I went to Guatemala for my training for 2 weeks, and then came home, and then went back to Costa Rica for a retreat.
Man, and it takes a toll on you to travel in general, but especially going to those countries, it's just a whole nother world. So I can only imagine how hard it is to constantly adjust from being here in the United States and then going there and then coming back. Has to be such an adjustment.
It is. It's culture shock to the extreme. And not even just like the quality of living, and I'm not speaking to like materialistic things. I'm speaking to like the way they view life and the way they live their lives. It's just so much more in tune with nature, and they live as a family unit, and the family unit isn't just their household, it's their entire community. And they think like that, they live like that. They live within their means. They live within respect to what they need. It's never in excess. It's very minimal because that's what they need. Like that's what they need, and that's what makes them happy. And then coming back to the States, where you go out to dinner and you spend $40 to $50 on a dinner. Well, that's a week of food.
Yeah.
And and then you go out with your friends, and then they go shopping, and they're just spending money on these stupid doodads at Marshall's, and it's really it becomes harder and harder to relate to the people and the way I used to live my life every time I come home.
I can only imagine. I feel like just from times of me traveling to different places, coming home and somebody starts complaining about the smallest thing that's going on in their life, and I instantly look at them and I'm like, really? this is what you're worried about right now? Like, do you know how other people are living and this is your biggest concern?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Like, I bartend, and when people complain or act entitled at my bar, I just look at them cross-eyed and I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not even going to indulge in that comment."
And it doesn't help either when you're like providing a service to these people too. Like, you have to, be on your best behavior, and you have to like give them this service, and you kind of don't want to anymore.
Oh yeah. That's one of the questions you asked me, like, what's a skill or trait that makes you stand out? And I'm just like brutally honest, and it gets me in trouble a lot of the time. So I'm learning to calm my face and close my mouth.
I can imagine that getting harder though as you travel more.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to get people or let people get under your skin when you come back.
Well, the things that they say, I would say, irritate me more, but I don't let it affect me because it doesn't affect me. I just realize that they're at a certain place in their realization, and I'm at a certain place in my realization or on my path. And now I've walked far enough away from it that it just rolls right off of my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when people get an attitude with me, I just laugh. I'm like, okay.
Something I also wanted to, which like relates back into this, especially with, dealing with coming back after retreats or so, but we talked about it a little bit before we started recording here about kind of what encourages you to, host these international retreats. What does it do for you, and what do you hope that it does for others as well?
Well, every time I travel, and no matter where I go, and I tend to want to travel now to places that are a little less developed than America. And even if they are as developed, I certainly don't go to any Americanized parts of the country. Like, I want to experience the country for the country. I don't want to go and stay in an American resort and have people speak English to me and wait on me like I'm in a resort in, some luxury place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really like to explore how people live their lives and what makes them tick and what makes them happy, because it makes me think about, when I come home, why do I live my life the way I do, and what am I investing my time in, and is what I am investing my time in truly making me happy, or am I just doing it because it's a facet of our culture, or it was ingrained in, this blueprint of the American lifestyle?
Yeah.
Or am I doing it because I'm a white female and middle class? Why? Does this serve me? Am I just doing it because, or am I doing it because I want to do it, because it's bringing me something of value? I don't think a lot of people really stop and ask themselves those questions. So that's a big reason why I host, or have, plans to host international events and retreats, is because I want to take people on that journey and take them out of their every normal day, because a lot of people haven't left that. And if you don't leave it, you don't see it, and you can't question it. And maybe the question is, I love exactly what I do when I'm home, and that's great. But until you have the opportunity to have a different experience, then you don't know.
I 100% agree. And that's a big reason as to why I even wanted to start this podcast too, is to, bring unique stories to everyone's attention, because otherwise you might not even give it a second thought, or you have no idea how life-changing, this can be. If you make that decision, even just to travel to somewhere new, it opens up your mind to something different, because you
Yeah.
do get so stuck in the everyday, or you get so stuck in the all-American way of living and what society says you're supposed to do, and how you're supposed to get your bachelor's degree and then maybe your master's, and then have a 9-to-5 job and have a family, and then just keep it going from there, rolling, where your kids then do the same thing. But
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't necessarily need to be that way.
no, and not even the American dream, or like the cookie cutter stereotypical way to live your life, but it's like even American yoga. Oh my God, don't even get me started. It's just it's so diluted, and it's embarrassing, honestly, what we've done to something that is so sacred and powerful. So yeah, and that's what I want. I want to take people out of that polluted American made concept of yoga and bring them into the freaking jungle, or put them on the beach and like give them a different experience, Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't I can. I don't. I feel very I don't have the opportunities to teach to the depth that I want to teach here in the States. Like I talking about yoga philosophy, or chanting, or using mantra, or you know, those things are not things that I do in my classes around here, because people don't like it. They're uncomfortable. They
Mm-hmm.
don't come back to my classes. That's not what they want. They want a physical practice. They want to do like 20 chaturangas, and if they didn't sweat, then they want
Mm-hmm.
their money back. And so like now, I don't teach in a studio. I only teach on the beach. And I have this huge following of students that I see at the gym, because I teach group fitness, and they're like, "Oh, when are you gonna come back? Like, when are you gonna teach yoga?" And I'm like, I teach on the beach." Like, "You're not gonna teach here?" And I'm like, "No." Well, why not? I'm like, it's not authentic. Like, I
Mm-mm.
don't want to teach in a box. It's just it, and I really started to question whether I was being a disservice to my students by doing that, because I'm here, to help them, and I have to meet everyone where they are. And I understand that. But, I taught on the beach this morning, and I had, um, visitors from out of town. I don't know them. And a few of them had never taken class on the beach before. And the one woman at the end of class was like, "Wow, that was such a different experience." Um, and I thought maybe she was talking about, like, I, speak a little spiritually in the end of class, and I do a longer pranayama intro, very similar to what we did on the retreat. I take my time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I were to teach that in the studio, people would be looking at the clock like, "Why haven't we done 15 vinyasas yet?" And she's like, "Wow, that was so amazing. Like, it was so different from in the studio, like there's no music, and it's just the sound of the ocean and the birds and the breeze. Like, it was just so relaxing." And I was like, "Yeah, that's why I don't teach in a box. I can't do it.
It's
This is
all
what
about the experience.
it's the experience." Yeah. This is the best part, is realizing that this natural environment is so beautiful and amazing, and like we can't control it. I'm like, and that's what in the retreats, like I can't control the bugs. I can't
Mm-hmm.
control the lizards that are pooping on your mat. I can't, I can't control the downpour of rain, or the humidity that's 99% and you're sweating your face off. Like, those are the lessons that are supposed to come to you for you to realize, why am I swatting at this fly? If I just forget about the fly, it won't bother me.
Very true. And even for us, like during the retreat, it actually, like thinking about it, worked out perfect, because every time we had like a serious sound ceremony, all of a sudden it was downpouring, like the heaviest downpours that we had. And then you still hear all the birds making their noises, and whatever other insects and animals were in the jungle were like going crazy. But it always worked out in perfect timing. And if you're in a yoga studio, you don't have that. Like, that's not going to happen. But when you're in the middle of the jungle, you just have to go with whatever gets thrown at you. But it ended up being perfect in every scenario that we were in.
Well, and it's not that it's perfect, it's that we're so obsessed with trying to manipulate and control everything in our lives. And the moment you realize you're not in control and you just move with the synchronicity of what's happening for you, then you come into alignment and you don't have to, force it. It just works.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Exactly. I love it. That is so awesome.
And that's how you know when you're on the right path, as if you don't have to work and it just happens.
Definitely. That is something that I have been coming to realize a lot within even just the past few months. I mean, really the past year in life. I've always been a planner, and I always tried to plan everything in my life. And then the past year, I finally just like let go. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm not planning anything else. I'm going with the flow. Whatever happens is supposed to happen. I just need to let go. And then eventually, as months were going on, everything just started falling into place. And it still just keeps happening. The more and more I have let go of everything, the more things just fall into place. And it feels so much better than when I was trying to force things and plan everything out.
Yeah. It's like,
unbelievable.
My dad left, and it gave me the opportunity to let go, to quit everything. And then I had the one chance to reset my life and allow that was supposed to come back to me and fill my life to come back. Because I had completely released everything. It's like you want something else, but you're full. Your trash is full. You can't put something else in a full trash can. You got to empty it.
So, I know one of my questions was how has yoga impacted your life, but I kind of feel like you've gotten into that. So I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to add to that question or not.
Yeah. And I say this with a grain of salt. And sometimes I say it as like jokingly. That's something that I do. I make light of important things. But yoga like saved my life, like seriously, multiple times. Like to the point where I did not want to be here anymore. This was just not doing it. I'm out of this. I'm done. Like that was one of the lows that I hit when I was in grad school. I didn't think that I would experience suicidal thoughts again in my life. And I did. And that's what terrified the hell out of me. And realized that I needed to make a change. Last summer, when I went to Whistler for Wanderlust, I took a yoga class, and it was like a dance experience. It was like to a live DJ set with laser lights, and we were shaking our bodies and dancing and chanting, and like it brought me back to life, because before I went to Whistler, I didn't want to live anymore. I mean, life was terrible. And if I hadn't gone to that yoga class, I don't know how I would have gotten back on track. And so, yeah, that really like shook me back to life. And before I went to Guatemala, I was really low because I was struggling with like the success of my retreat and the success of myself as an individual. And it was really hard for me to separate the two of those things. And I remember being in the car and not even wanting to get out of the car and go to the airport to go to my training for sound healing, and telling my mom, like, I don't want to travel anymore. It doesn't make me happy, because I was having so much anxiety about being a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to that training and worked through a lot of stuff and was able to see that, I'm not my work. It's a facet of something that I do, but it's not me. And the reason that I do what I do is to help get people out of the shit hole that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
to take them out and tell them, okay, there is a light somewhere. I don't know where it is. I don't know how long it's going to take you to see it, but it's there.
And that's the best way to be a teacher. If you've been through something yourself, then it makes your students resonate with you and they can relate more. And it only makes you a better teacher to them. And you're, I'm sure, changing lives and helping people to extremes and might not even realize it all the time. But because you also went through these life-changing events, you're able to help other people get through it as well.
Yeah. I mean, the strength that I was able to build in Guatemala was 100% in preparation for what happened to me the day that I arrived. I came back on a Monday from Guatemala for my training, and Tuesday, Ryan died, and I never saw him.
And being on that trip before, I'm sure, kind of brought things back to you in that moment in order to guide you along in that process.
Yeah. I mean, we had gone to rehab in December and came out and was living with me, and we were together. We were trying to like piece our lives back, trying to figure out, how to be together again, also without anyone knowing about it. None of my friends or my family knew we were together. And I only told my mom 3 days before I went to Guatemala that we were seeing each other again, and she wasn't happy. So it was like people really didn't understand and don't understand. Like they didn't know we were together. Like no one knew that we were dating again. So it just kind of looks like I'm mourning the loss of, an ex-boyfriend from a year ago. No one knew that like I had spoken to him 2 hours before he died. Never saw him or his body.
Definitely.
So yeah, I don't know. Yoga is it kind of just like showed me how like imperfectly perfect I am, or life is, and just that, life's happening for me even in the shittiest of shit. It's happening for me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And, reminding me not to play that why me card, because that is just, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Right. 100%. Have you witnessed this also happening for any of clients of yours that you've had? in the past where you've seen yoga has impacted their life, either similar or in different ways that it has impacted yours?
I think ever since I started teaching group fitness like 11 years ago, there hasn't been a single day that's gone by without one of my clients or my students, telling me somehow that their life has changed because of, adopting a healthier lifestyle or working out or coming to yoga. And I love the yoga ones too, because I'll have these people or, that are my friends or in the community, and they're the skeptical ones or whatever. And then I see them like start posting online, oh, I went to yoga and blah, 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 and I just feel great and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, right? Don't you wish you'd done this a long time ago? They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, solves all your problems, right? They're like, yeah, it's great. I'm like, yeah, I know. You don't have to get a prescription for it.
I only tried telling you this years ago, but on your own time.
Yeah, you can just lead them. You just lead them to the water.
Well,
exactly. And that's what I do is like, I try to be as honest and real as I can be online, because not everyone, there's a lot of fakeness and inauthenticity, which drives me absolutely bananas. And a lot of people can't handle my realness, because it's real. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me privately and say like, hey, I've been going through the same thing. I cannot thank you enough for like speaking or saying what you said on your post or doing what you do, because you're my inspiration and you really helped me get through this. And like different things like depression or postpartum depression. Like I had a girl that I worked with years ago, like come to a yoga class because she had seen some of my posts, and she's like, yeah, I had a child and I'm really struggling after it, like with postpartum depression, and it's been really hard. And like you were speaking about truth and like speaking your truth and like being honest, and like it really helped me vocalize what I'm going through. And I never would have been able to like get through this unless I spoke what was happening to me. And yeah, it's crazy the stories that I get of people that I've impacted, because I don't really think that I'm that powerful or impactful, and like just little old me. But I'm helping people make these really profound realizations. And so it's just a reminder that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm on the right path.
100%. That's amazing. And I think that's something that comes along with, being a teacher or an instructor or a leader of some sort, is the fact that you're not just showing people how to do something, but you also have to open yourself up to being vulnerable and letting people connect with you emotionally as well, because that sometimes is even more impactful than physically showing them how to move. Sometimes people need more of a mental help than they do physically, even though they're going for the physical practice, but it's all connected together.
Oh, 20,000%.
And they might not even realize that that's what they needed.
No, they have no idea. I mean, subconsciously they do, or consciously, but that's not what they're going.
And so what do you feel is your purpose and why you do what you do every day?
I have been asking myself this question like 100 times over the past 2 years. And it's also the question that causes me to freeze in like pause, like stop and like lose my momentum, lose my confidence, because if I don't know, like I don't know the answer sometimes, especially when these really tragic things happen to me and I'm sitting in this terrible fucking pain. I'm like, what is this? What is the purpose of me going through this? Like, this is terrible. I don't want to live. I'm 31. I don't want to live for another 50 to 80 years and do this. Like, no, I'm done. And I don't, like, I guess, like, all I know right now is decide that I'm here. And if I was supposed to die, then I would have died at birth, because I had a heart complication and I had 2 open heart surgeries as a 2-month and 5-month-old. So like, that was my chance, like, take me. But Jesus, I'm going to have to survive and endure a lot of shit, because that was my opportunity, and now nothing's going to kill me. So I guess like, I'm just going to experience all this pain and grief and like, just take it as being some sort of necessary evil. I don't know. So that I can figure out how the hell to heal myself and, like, against all odds, like, find the light again and the beauty in life. And I think that's what I realized, on the retreat in Costa Rica, is like, that's my purpose, is to constantly continue to heal myself and just show people that it's possible. I can't tell you exactly how to do it. For you, it's going to be different, 100%.
Just know that it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I keep doing it a lot. I mean, I continue to go for my mom and my dad, because I don't want all of their hard work to go in vain. But also, it's those moments that I can, or that I know that I've helped take the pain and suffering away from someone else, that makes it worth it. Those conversations that I have with people, that's why I do what I do.
And outside of that, do you have any hopes, different hopes outside of that for your future?
Just continue to ask myself, I guess, these like really deep questions. I guess they don't have to be deep, but just ask myself these, questions, and not be afraid to continue to strip away all the layers and find out what isn't, and then find out what is me, and just continue to simplify my life and lead retreats and teach and train and travel and do what makes me happy. One of my friends that I met in El Salvador says, find what feels light and do that.
I like that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really love teaching, and so I was teaching a lot of workshops in the States, and so I want to continue to expand those, and eventually transition into a more educational role in yoga. And so one day host my own yoga teacher training. That's definitely a goal of mine. Helped me figure my shit out. I mean, it was the best thing that I had ever done in my life. It's like, I explain it to people like, you're checking yourself into rehab, but it's not because you have an addiction or an abuse problem or anything like that. It's, you're going to rehab because you want to figure out how to live a life that's worth living. Like, how to establish a better relationship with yourself and the world that you live in.
Oh, that's amazing. And then you can take everything that you've gone through and just put it all in there.
Yeah. I don't think anything should be mandatory in life other than a yoga teacher training program. A good one. Let's just say that.
Well, then when you host yours, I'll be a part of it.
Perfect. I love it.
I think that'd work out great.
I agree.
And so now, something that is, really my main purpose of my brand, I would say, is trying to, tell people stories on how they got out of their comfort zone in order to get to where they are today.
Uh-huh.
And that's my goal, is to be able to push people outside their comfort zone. So it's because it's so easy to just do what's comfortable, what feels easy to them, and just live life the way it is rather than living life to their fullest. So what do you feel like has gotten you out of your comfort zone in order to get to where you are today?
Well, I think it's quite comical because I grew up in a town on the eastern shore of Maryland with like a population of 500 people. And most of the people that grow up in that town, like that's their life. They stay there, they stay in Bivalve, and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had this like drive to go other places. And it's not because I thought that Bivalve doesn't have anything to offer me. It's always my home, and I appreciate it more and more each day. But I've always been that person that wanted to get away, go explore something, and I think that it's totally normal to me. But when I tell people that I travel internationally alone, they get so freaked out. They're like, "Well, what? You lived in you go to Nicaragua and El Salvador and Costa Rica and Bali alone? Well, don't you get bored?" I'm like, "No." I have like best friends all over the world. I literally have best friends on every single continent.
Oh,
And you meet people when you travel, like you stay in hostels, like you have to be resourceful. You can't just like not talk to people, because
mm-hmm.
you have to figure out where the hell you're going, where the grocery store is, ask someone, where should I stay? Like, am I safe here? And then you always meet the right people at the right time, and they share their stories with you in the right moment. And I don't know. I've always been an independent person. So I guess me traveling the world alone isn't a big deal. But my mom often reminds me of how much balls I have to do that. Whenever I talk to people about what I do, or they ask me what I do, and they're like, "Oh, well, what company do you work for?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, how do you get your jobs?" Like, I apply, I send my resume to their email address. I mean, that's what I did last summer. I would send 10 or 15 emails at a time, and I had job offers. I had a full-time job in New Zealand. I couldn't get my visa to New Zealand approved. I got a job offer in Bali and Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia, Portugal and Ecuador. And I mean, virtually anywhere that I sent my resume, they were hiring me. So it's it's hard work, but until you put yourself out there, you don't know. You're never going to get anywhere.
Exactly.
So
it is all up to you.
It is. And I don't live on the cookie cutter. There is no rule book to the way I live my life. And I often feel like I'm just flailing around, but it's working.
Yeah. All that matters is that you're happy and you're doing exactly what you want to be doing every day. There's no cookie cutter way.
No. And I mean, I've just experienced tomorrow's not promised. So I don't give a shit how much money I have in the bank. I don't care if I have the brand new whatever thingy it is. Because when I die, that's not coming with me. It's just, everything that happens is just a really strong reminder of what are you doing with your time? If you're not enjoying it, you're wasting it.
Exactly. Well, I would like to thank you for doing this podcast with me. I really, really appreciate it. I absolutely loved hearing your story when we were at the retreat, and I even learned even more during this podcast as well. And I think it's awesome that you were willing to talk about it to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's nice to acknowledge yourself sometimes. It's okay to pat yourself on the back.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Or realize like, hey, that's cool. That's cool. That's me.
Yep. Exactly. Look at everything I've been through. Look at my life. Look at my accomplishments. Look at me where I am today.
Yeah, I'm still kicking it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so tell everyone where they can find you as well.
So you can find me. Right now I'm in Ocean City, Maryland, for the summer through the fall. And you can always find me online at Hoff Fitness on Instagram. It's HOEFFITNESS. It's not Ho Fitness. Everyone's like, why is your Instagram name Ho Fitness? My last name's Hoeffner, so it's my nickname. And then I am in the process of planning a mini weekend retreat in Popoyo, Nicaragua in November of 2019. So those details will be out very soon, if not within the next few days. And then stay tuned for more retreats in the winter and in the spring.
Awesome. That's so exciting. And I highly recommend them. They are life-changing.
They will change a life.
Yeah.
And mine too. That's why I do it. I love it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks again for listening to the Inspired by HERstory podcast. I hope you found some inspiration, motivation, encouragement, and empowerment to get out of your comfort zone and live your life to the fullest. Make sure to hit subscribe, share with a friend, and take these stories with you to make the changes in your life that you've been looking for. Follow me on Instagram at Caitlin Casso, and even check out my work at caitlincasso.com. Stay tuned for the next Inspired by HERstory episode.